right, so welcome, Gill. It is so lovely to have you. And I think we've chatted on a few occasions about welcoming you to do a talk for our lovely Havenites. And so what perfect timing in the middle of a pandemic to share some, really valuable stuff around managing our nervous system in this time. So before we go into that, can we chat a little bit about yourself? So for those of you that don't know Gill, I'll just share how I met Gill. We actually connected through a community inner west sort of health professional network. So through that, we're connected on lots of different levels, and Gill also comes and hangs out with us at the studio sometimes, which we just love. So Gill, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background with as a naturopath and everything that you sort of focus on in your practice?
Sure. I've been a naturopath for almost 30 years, which makes me feel extremely wise when I say that. So I trained I'm another Kiwi. I moved to Melbourne a very long time ago and trained there, set up a practice there for 20 something years, a big multidisciplinary clinic right in the CBD in Melbourne. I used to teach at one of the naturopathic colleges, herbal medicine. I love using herbs, and I would always describe my approach as very sensible, down to earth, and try to be accessible. I also in Melbourne did a radio talkback show for 20 years.
That sounds cool. I didn't know it was for that long. Wow.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And I moved to Sydney in 2014. So I've been here for almost 6 years, and this is my home office because up until this pandemic time, 90-something% of my clients were in Melbourne and Aberdeen and Lucerne and London. So I only saw a few locals here. It's been a very easy transition for me. Wow. So I'm very, very used to talking to people on Zoom and Skype and whatever.
So you're like a Zoom expert.
Well, no, I still don't know how to get a background picture or, do things like that. I don't really care. I just think these are just mediums for us to communicate.
It's just a different platform.
Yeah. So I particularly love herbs and food and lifestyle, kind of grassroots. I also like reading research. So I kind of balance those sides of my brain, and I kind of have a little sideline as a volunteer in ovarian cancer advocacy and as what's called a consumer in research. So I actually hang out with scientists a lot of the time and give them a consumer perspective on that. So yeah.
You're a busy lady.
Well, not so busy now. It's kind of wonderful. Hasn't life become, for me, because I'm not unlike all my wonderful colleagues who've done mad dashes of, closing clinics and moving dispensaries. It's just kind of been business as usual for me, except working from home for 6 years, I have had so much more daytime contact with people. It can be a bit isolating working from home, but everyone's in it at the moment. So everyone's wanting to chat throughout the day, and neighbours, wave and smile and have a chat. So yeah, it's kind of the same, but oddly better.
Yeah, I've been finding that as well. Just the connection is much more consistent, and everybody, like, I've been connecting with people and chatting to people that I haven't spoken to for some time. I find that really really helpful. It's really good.
The isolation thing, it's hardly bothering me at all because I never go out anyway, so it doesn't really bother me the slightest.
So you're pretty comfy with it. That's good. Yeah. Cool, Gill. So we wanted to talk, do you want to actually share what it was that you thought would be valuable to speak about today? Because it was you that approached me initially about having a chat about this. So tell me more about.
Well, over these last few weeks, I think the past week people have been a bit less stressed, but building up to change. Whenever our routine gets disrupted in some ways and challenges are thrown at us and there's fear and uncertainty, it's our nervous system that really can start to play up. And I've kind of been watching clients and friends go on various roller coasters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a tearful phase. I think we shared a tearful phase a few weeks back, and you know, before that, often a bargaining phase where you're saying, well, I can still do this. That's okay. That's all right. I can still do that. That's okay. But actually, we're just bargaining away, and different levels of acceptance, and you know, feeling up and down and angry. Anxious. So I kind of thought that's all our nervous system playing out. So I thought it'd be really good to share. I mean, look, I think a huge chunk of people's health, whether they've got an underlying physical, chronic or acute health condition or not, everything that we do with our nervous system can help.
Yeah, definitely. And what a crazy time that we find ourselves in, where, you know, maybe we neglect to sort of think about our nervous system much in our general day-to-day lives, and that when we're all under, you know, different levels of stress and pressure in that, and then there can be different periods of time where there's some worry or anxiety in that. But this time when it's just kind of coming at you from every direction and everybody's under it, it's a really interesting time. So I think it's a really helpful time to start to bring a little bit of awareness about the things that we can do to help soothe and manage it ourselves.
And you know, part of that is that feeling of being out of control. And when you've got a few kind of tips on how to soothe in a healthy way, it actually brings a sense of control back into your world. Yeah, because
uncertainty can be, I mean, that's what, that lack of control, like, is so scary, because it's like we don't have, the uncertainty is scary because we don't have control. And when things are out of control, it can kind of compound, I think, and feel a bit more intense than usual. Cool. So can we chat a little bit about the biology of the nervous system? Because I love to understand the science behind things, and in lay people's terms, that we can all easily understand.
Sure. So the part of the nervous system that we tend to think about when the wheels come off is what's called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is that really primitive nervous system that you don't really control yourself. It's, you know, like when you're driving in the car and somebody comes up in front of you, and before you even think about it, you've slammed on the brakes. That's the kind of autonomic system is helping that. And it has two pathways. So it has, I love this, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the parasympathetic is when you're super relaxed and floppy. And the sympathetic is what we tend to think about when we talk about stress. So it's the part that does the fight, flight, freeze. So this is, you know, this is the thing we forget about. We think we're so sophisticated, but we are just primitive beings wandering around. It's like we're still on the savannah and, you know, a big wildcat's about to attack us. And so, you know, our reaction is to fight it, to run from it, or to freeze and hope it doesn't see us and hope that, you know, nothing happens. And when that happens, when we activate the sympathetic nervous system pathway, it means the body automatically makes compensations. And so it sends a bit more blood and nerve flow to our heart and lungs and muscles and brain, but it's got to take it away from somewhere. So it takes it away from the things that it doesn't need right now. So your digestion. So digestion goes to emergency power, I say. Reproductive system and to your skin. So it takes it away from those places because it's saying, look, how long is it going to be? A few seconds or at most a few hours, you're going to be in this state. But really what's happened as, you know, as wonderful, sophisticated beings, we've evolved to actually live with chronic low stress in the background. I think that's Karina from Meld. Yeah. So we've got chronic low stress in the background. And so that means that we're getting more energy and blood flow to our muscles. So we're getting our, you know, if we're anywhere in your skeleton's a bit out, then the muscles that are hanging off it are going to have a little bit more blood. They're going to be a bit more engorged. And that's where your back aches and neck aches and, you know, all those aches and pains come up. You might notice I agree that you might notice you have a bit of your heart's beating a bit faster, or you're breathing shallowly, you know, that you're not having a full breath. That's all part of that sympathetic response. And then long term, so this is why some people have some long-term gut issues. You know, it might shoot through too fast, wake up first thing in the morning, oh, got to go to the loo, oh, got to do it again and again and again, and then it's kind of normal for the rest of the day, or block up entirely. And the long-term impact on things like the reproductive system can be, sometimes stress can be the underlying trigger in menstrual irregularities, even infertility in some cases, and a whole heap of stuff. And skin, you know, our body just basically says that's the least important organ unless something's damaged, you know, a huge percentage of it at once, like in a burn. And basically you have to breathe right, move right, shit right, everything right before your skin's going to clear up.
Right, yeah.
And so, so probably one of the most common things that we associate with not being aware that we're stressed. So when we're super stressed, we're going to get the thoughts and the heart and the breathing. But your chronic background stress can be, you know, your gut's just not quite right, and your skin's playing up and your period's all over the place.
Yeah, that all makes total sense. And can I ask, like, in a situation like this where even those who maybe don't identify as being stressed or having anxiety as something sort of chronically underlying, but it comes up for this period of time, like, you know, short term, I guess. Can that be easy to sort of, like, can that just sort of come and go? Like, you know, I definitely resonate with being chronically, having chronic anxiety, but, you know, when it comes up just for these periods of time, does it just sort of go away as well? So if we just have this period of time where we're in 6 months, we're in this pandemic, or 3 months or 12 months, and will it just go? Or do we have some sort of knock-on effects of that where we've had sort of permanent damage to the body in some way?
Well, we're all individuals. And so hopefully, collectively as individuals, we're not going to stay in a hyper stress state for however long this piece of string lasts for. And in fact, there are some people who are going to find that their new routine and their new way of life is actually working better for them. So we could have people who are less stressed.
People who want to just stay permanently indoors, like myself. Just
all the introverts are really happy. And things like, you know, one of the things that we notice, you know, when we're a bit stressed, we can either sleep too much or too little, have trouble getting off to sleep or staying asleep or waking up too early in the morning. That now with things like if you are somebody who's not having to go out of your home to work and you're not commuting anymore, you can get large chunks of time back to exercise and to relax and to go to bed early. But you know, when we do talk about chronic stress as being a great trigger of other underlying conditions. So if your body is subconsciously rerouting the energy around long term, well, it doesn't have time, doesn't have the resources to do repair. So our body's always maintaining and repairing itself, and long-term stress can then just trigger a whole heap of things.
And that just led me to think of something else. Why is it that we are affected differently? So I mean, we're individuals, of course, but
we're individuals, and we all do have different, you know, our internal bar for stress is all different, and it's also will go up and down. So it's like if you've gone through a really stressful time, particularly if it's been prolonged, and I mean more than this, you know, the time that we're collectively living, if you kind of go through a really stressful personal time, I often find that you're, after that, for quite a while, your psyche's jumping in really fast as soon as you get any little stresses in the background and saying, don't stop it, you know, retreat, take some time out. This doesn't feel okay, because it's saying, don't put me into that stress state. Also, some people are blissfully disconnected from themselves, you know. It's like some people are. It's really interesting. I had a conversation a little while ago with someone and who had years of prolonged stress, and now it had been a few years down the track where she'd been in a safe environment, and I kind of said, well, don't you think there's some impact from all that stress? And she said, was I stressed? And then I kind of did this really, just kind of repeated back to her that, she was in some life and death situations, and she went, oh, yeah. And
didn't even realise.
But she had these chronic health issues that she couldn't see.
Yeah.
Like sleep and, all that sort of stuff that unpack. And so look, the opposite of the stress state. So this, if we go back and go, this stress state of our autonomic nervous system's sympathetic pathway being triggered is because we feel like we're in danger. The opposite of that is safety. So I really like to think about, in what way can I right now and today and this week remind myself that I'm safe. I have enough food, I have enough water, I have a roof over my head. Actually, those fundamental needs, thanks to Maslow, I'm not going to reproduce, so I'll leave that off the list, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs is actually, I am safe. So some people who are at home at the moment aren't safe, and that's a whole other issue. Hopefully all the Havenites are safe, but it's reminding ourselves, okay, when, what makes me feel unsafe? If I have too much exposure to the news. In the beginning, my previous life was having a degree in political science, and I'm really interested in politics and world affairs. But I can find that point when the naturopath kicks in and says, don't go down that vortex anymore. It's impacting your sleep. And because it's to go to bed and look on my phone and look at the news, how many people have died today, what's happening in London, the other side of the world's waking up, is just telling me the world's not safe. So I have to think about what makes me feel safe.
That's a good little cue, just thinking about safety. That's good. So what do you suggest? What are your top tips for ways that we can soothe and bring ourselves into that more parasympathetic nervous system?
Well, I'll just put my herbalist hat on for a moment and say, have a look in your pantry. If you've got a garden or you've got neighbours' gardens that grow over into wildcrafting territory. This is a herb called lemon balm, and it does smell slightly lemony, and it really does grow like a weed. And you can, if you think you found it, you can always double check and do a search of what the leaf should look like. And when you smell it, it smells of lemon. It doesn't smell of something bitter. Herbs that you might have in your cupboard might even be some chamomile tea bags. Herbs that you might see on the street that would be safe to use might be some lavender flowers.
I love lavender.
All those you can drink. Some people really don't like drinking lavender because if you put too much in, it kind of tastes like drinking perfume. But all three of those herbs, apart from just drinking them as a tea, which I'm doing right now. I've got my lemon balm tea for the garden, and I've been smelling it. It's really nice. Even if you're using a tea bag of something, to make it in a pot so it can steep away and you can smell it. You get the aromatherapy. And you're having that instead of caffeine or more caffeine, or sugary drinks. Is put it in your bath. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a full bath, an adult-sized bath, then I couldn't use all that in a big coffee plunger to make it as a tea and pour it into the bath. I could get some chamomile or lavender, even if it's from a tea bag, and to put that into a clean stocking. And if you've got any stockings or clean socks that are missed pairs or something, you can use that, or a clean handkerchief if people still have handkerchiefs, chucks cloths. You can put in like a tablespoon or two of rolled oats and whatever nice smelly thing a herb that you're adding, tie it up, and it becomes a fragrant soap bag. It's also really good for children with delicate skin, or if you've got irritated skin, you can make it as a soap bag. And the oats have a constituent in them called saponins, and saponins basically means something that goes soapy.
I didn't know that. So oats as in like rolled oats?
Rolled oats. Yeah.
Yeah.
rolled oats, that's good, but otherwise you can make it as a tea, or if you've got any essential oils, a lot of people will have lavender essential oil. The most important thing with essential oils is to really use, literally, in a full-size bath, no more than about 2 drops, because it's so concentrated.
Can I ask a question about essential oils while
Yes.
we're on that? You know how there's like all the brands, there's
the multi-level marketing brands,
yeah. Are the ones that you can just get from the chemist, are they okay? Or
yeah. And never drink because I know there's a lot of misinformation from these companies saying yes, you can drink them. Don't drink them. They are such strong, potent medicines, and apart from that, you're going to burp it up for hours. It's really, really nasty. They are so strong, so toxic in that strength. But what you find from a good health food store or a pharmacy, right, but always look for something that's actually 100% pure essential oil, not a fragranced oil.
Okay.
Because you don't want any of those kind of nasty synthetic fragrances. And so for people who don't have a bath, we have the bath. Okay. Oh, no, that was another prop I was going to bring up, but forgot, is to do a foot bath. So foot baths, like those old-fashioned washing up size buckets, something that you can fit both your feet in comfortably.
Yeah.
This is even more perfect to do before bed, because when you heat up your feet, it kind of helps that circulation to come to your feet in a way, so if you've got lots of thoughts in your head and you think, oh, I can't be bothered having a whole bath, or I don't have a bath, it's just to do a foot bath. So what I tell people to do is, heat up your water, put any smellies you want to put in. So with that, you wouldn't want more than 1 drop of any essential oil, or you might just want to throw in a chamomile tea bag. Or some Epsom salts, which is kind of magnesium. It's really relaxing. Have a towel, like a hand towel, maybe even a pair of socks, and the kettle has already boiled again, so you've got some spare hot water there. So you can pour in your herbal tea, your drop of oil, your handful of Epsom salts, your tea bag, and just try to sit there for at least 15 minutes. And what you're going to notice is that after about 5 minutes, the water's gone from being super hot and just bearable to being a bit tepid. So then you just gently take your feet out and pour in the boiled water so you don't scald yourself. Feet back in, and you can sit there and top it up. At the end of the time that you feel quite nice and relaxed, dry them off, maybe put some socks on and jump into bed. And it's going to really help you relax. And you can herbally enhance it as well.
Yeah. So with the, would you just put tea bags in just a tea bag, just as it is?
Look, if you've just got chamomile as a tea bag, you can and then it just makes it really easy when you're throwing the water out from your foot bath or whatever. Also too, if you were doing it in a full bath with a drain, that's why it's if you're going to use loose herbs, it's a really good idea to just put them in a hanky or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's good. It's a good tip.
But making it as a tea is good. And actually, this is how, as herbalists, we treat babies up to 3 months old or 6 months old, apart from through the mother through breast milk. We do things like chamomile baths for fractious babies, and it works really well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So the other herbs that you might have at home might be those rolled oats, and oats are a nervous system herb.
I didn't really think of oats as a herb.
Yeah, we tend to use the green before the oaty part has been dried and looks like how we recognise it. It's kind of a green kind of top on it.
Okay.
But it's really rich in food doses of some of the B vitamins and magnesium and nervous system food.
Okay,
So your oats, if you want to get the goodies, like the nutrients out of oats, it's always best to soak them. So if you're going into porridge season like me, if you soak it, put it in the pot with some water, just sitting there overnight, they're going to fluff up and cook really fast. Or if you've got a nice homemade muesli, same thing. You just, I'll soak them in my soy milk overnight, and they're really yummy and easy to digest. So when you're a bit stressed, but not feeling safe, then how I said how your gut goes on to emergency power, which means that having having food that's easy to digest and get the goodies out of is easier. So oats made as porridge, slow cooked stews and soups.
So if the nervous system is in that fight or flight where you know, the digestive system isn't working to its full capacity, then it's better to take foods that are like easy to digest in that.
Yeah. And so there's that paradox that when you are in that stress mode, you're using up more of those nutrients in your body. So you're needing more Bs and magnesium and those kind of nutrients. And you're also finding it harder to get those nutrients from your food because your gut's on maintenance level, not on superpower. Yeah.
So interesting.
And so, and warming things as we're getting a bit more autumnal. You know, even things like drinking ginger tea. So getting some ginger root and just grating it up. And I like to put it into a teapot so I don't have to pick the pieces out. You know, a bit of ginger or even just slices of ginger in some warm water. Just helps bring the... So this is the other thing, how we can trick our body. Okay, so I talked about how that blood and nerve pathway is altered. If you do things like bring warmth to your digestive system through warm food and through gingery drinks, breathe slow and deeper into our lungs and to actually calm ourselves down that way, it's like the nervous system saying, oh, I thought you were facing the tiger, but if you can breathe like that, and if you've got warmth going to those parts of your body and you're redirecting the blood flow back there, then maybe everything's okay. And while we live, we always got our breath with us. So it's one of the most powerful tools that we have to trick our nervous system back into the parasympathetic side rather than the sympathetic side.
I was going to ask about the breathing side of things, because obviously with the practice of yoga, there's a strong focus on pranayama, and in a yin practice especially, that is really designed to, or any restorative type practices, any of the slower practices, which at Haven are our most popular classes, like the yin, the unwind, the stretch, and the restorative are probably more popular than our other like more active yoga. So you know, the breathing does, obviously, it helps to bring your body into the parasympathetic nervous system, and that is a focus of the practice. So do you have any specific tips or recommendations on breathing practices?
Well, there's, apart from just trying to slow your breath down, there's things like box breathing, and you know, and some people do variations on it. Some schools of thought, like Buteyko, would say that you need to have a longer exhale than inhale, but basic box breathing is imagining a square. So you're breathing in for 3 seconds, you're holding for 3 seconds, you're breathing out for 3 seconds, you're holding for 3 seconds. And it's kind of, apart from the fact it's slowing your breath down, some people do 4, some people do 3 in and 5 out, but the main thing is you're concentrating on the box. So
I just remembered that, because I did the Buteyko too, and that I remember that coming up. And that just brings me to think about how I thought that was really powerful, was that, like you said, it makes you concentrate and focus. So it slows, it just brings you into the, it helps you be grounded into the present moment. So I find definitely for me with anxiety now, I feel like I spend most of my time up here. So anything that slows down and makes you focus on something that's in the moment, and that sort of takes you out of your head and more into your body. And that's part of why the practice of breathing pranayama can be so powerful.
So yeah, I think it's really, really good. And we're needing this balance. It's kind of in our exercise. We need the balance between actually working our muscles, because, you know, we've got that extra blood flow there. So they're going to get sore if you're not going to use that energy in your muscles, and getting a bit of cardio happening, but also too that unwind, that thing. So it's like I kind of do 2 different types of walks at the moment. I do I've been cooped up, I've sat too long at my desk, I just really need like a frustration walk, and I might listen to music or something, and I will be, it's all about the walking. Or the other walk I like to do, and I like to be able to do 2 of these in a day or 2 of these in a walk, which is kind of a mindfulness walk, where I wouldn't wear headphones. I'm looking around me. I'm trying to consciously be aware of every sense that I have. So yesterday there was actually wind that made me a bit homesick for Wellington. It was actually pushing my body at one point, and you could feel the wind. So that was, you know, the touch, you could feel the wind, or you can feel the heat of the sun. I can smell the beautiful lemon-scented gums, or even things like smelling a bit of rotten garbage as you're walking makes you feel really present. You're really here. You can smell it, you know. So taste, you know, the last time I did a coastal walk, I could actually taste the sea spray, even though I was quite a way, quite a height above it on a cliff, and I could taste it. Obviously, we're seeing things. So I don't know, have you noticed how many butterflies there are around at the moment?
No, but I'm sure I will now.
Every day I see butterflies in my little laneway garden. They're kind of, there must be some flowers around there like at the moment. And we're hearing things, you know, and particularly I love to listen to the birds as I walk, and overhearing other people's conversations, but it's like if we're in our senses when we're walking, to me that's the easiest, or even if we're here right now, ticking off all the senses where you are, we're in the moment. That's mindfulness 101. So it's like, yeah, meditation is great, relaxation exercises are great, but you know, also too, we're checking in that we can smell and taste things. With the coronavirus, it's a little check-in every morning. Yeah, I can smell it. So there, because, you know, a couple of things that, you know, it is about, okay, finding the time for things that balance us, of activity and rest, and out in the world and in and being comfortable being in our head, but getting some time out. The balance between communicating all day with people on screens and having that quiet time off screen. Yeah,
that is definitely a balance. I like what you said about the walk, how the first part of your walk can be that sort of charged, you know, getting active in the body and feeling, you know, just the power of being in your body, and doing that with the help of listening to something and moving fast, and then the balance to that is the more mindful walking and paying attention to the five senses. And I use the five senses a lot as a practice, as a grounding practice, and that just literally choosing one thing to notice of all the five senses, and it forces you to be really present. And I was just going to mention about mindfulness too. I think sometimes people get kind of mindfulness and meditation all mixed up, or they don't really differentiate between it. But mindfulness is feels like a much more accessible way to practice what, you know, meditation can support you in. Meditation and sitting there for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or, you know, half an hour can feel so out of reach, but mindfulness can be so accessible to all of us. And even just with that practice of the five senses, it can just help you, you know, bring you into the moment. And if that's something that can really give you that control over your nervous system, or give you that relationship with it where you're helping to choose which direction your nervous system is in. I think that's a really cool way to do it. So.
Meditation is a form of mindfulness. It's a mindfulness practice. And one of the things, like, you know, after meditating on and off for 30 years, it's kind of like, you know, one of the most key pieces of information I learned in the last 5 years was the meditation is you losing track. And because when you're aware that you have lost track of the meditation, you are in the moment. Therefore you've achieved. So instead of beating yourself up, you know, going, oh, you know, I can't do this, it's like, yay, you know, it's just like, congratulations, you noticed that you are not doing this now and you're in this moment. Great. Go back to the breath, go back to whatever. There's so many free mindfulness and meditation resources out there. There's just, and Insight Timer is probably one of the most well-known ones, that you can have a guided meditation, where you can do a breathing meditation. But as I said, you've got your senses with you, use them.
And that's something that you can just do anywhere. That's what I like about it. You can just do it in the moment, no matter where you are. And speaking of meditation, I will take this as a moment to introduce the free meditation course that Cindy's starting from tomorrow. So she'll be doing just we're starting with a 5-minute meditation. We're going to run it over 6 weeks. So the first week is 5 minutes, the second week is 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and so forth. So the purpose is to just gradually build in a practice of meditation to explore and see how it feels for you. And starting at that 5 minutes, again, that's an accessible kind of amount for most of us. So she'll do that, and she'll do a guided practice on Monday morning, and then it'll be available to replay for the rest of the week, kind of thing, at the morning, noon, and evening. And then at the end of those 6 weeks, we'll reach out to people and see if they want to explore something a little further, a little longer, a little more detailed from there.
And what time is that, the Monday morning?
So the first one, it's going to run 9:30 a.m. For just the 5-minute practice on Monday, and that's a live stream with Cindy, so opportunity for questions after as well if it's needed. But then that will just be available every day, replayed 3 times a day for that week. And then on the following Monday, she'll do a 6-minute meditation live stream option for
fantastic.
Yeah, that's a nice way to introduce it to some of us, or some of those out there who maybe haven't had much experience with it, and who do have think of that meditation, the idea of sitting down silently for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour is just not really appealing at all.
Thinking about meditation.
What's that, love?
I really want to get into meditation.
Well, this is probably a really good chance for you then, just a little 5 minutes with Cindy. It'll be a nice way to try it.
And look, I find that I'm much more likely to meditate if I do meditation in a group. Mm-hmm. So I know how to meditate. I know two really well practiced styles, as I said, for over 30 years. Yeah. But for me, it was like there's something about being in a group where everybody is doing. One, you can't just get up and go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think doing this online is also a really powerful way to Monica, to get into that practice is to show up. Yeah. And really it is. It's I think, all the really experienced meditators say, it is about showing up. It's showing up on the cushion. But you don't have to sit on the cushion anymore, but it's showing up on the cushion.
Yeah.
It's like writers. The practice is you show up at the desk.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that sort of that discipline of just starting, doing it, and doing it kind of something repeatedly to build that habit, that connection, then it kind of evolves from there.
So all kind of new habits can feel really uncomfortable or to begin with, or you don't schedule them because you haven't got into the habit. But it's like, I see it neurologically as like, when there's a path through long grass that's been worn, off a track that people make, and then that if you go off that path to make a new habit, it's quite, you've got to tramp the grass down. Yeah. So it's like, you've got to walk it a few times for you to get a clear path.
That's a nice analogy. I like that.
And what better time to be forming new habits than now when everything's been shaken up? Because of Anna's classes, I'm now exercising about 10 times a week. And you're
not flying all the time, sitting in airplanes.
That's right. All that time it was on airplanes is actually on my mat.
Wow. Yeah, you've got heaps more time up your sleeve in that way.
Oh, so good.
It's a time that we're all kind of forced to take some kind of action and change. Like it's just, I don't know if there's anybody who's gotten away with not really making any change unless they had already had this established habit of working from home a lot. But it's definitely a time where we've all had to be adaptable, and I think it's really shown. I've definitely seen how people can work. Humans, we can be really resilient and we can be really adaptable, but I've also seen that sort of in the opposite, how that changed, like when people haven't been so open to change, how that can be really challenging, and how that can then show up as anxiety and frustration and that can cause havoc with the nervous system and that. So it's interesting to see how some people are really open and willing to adapt, and some people are a bit resistant. And then, under these circumstances, when we're kind of forced to adapt, otherwise there's just no other way. Watching, seeing how that behaviour sort of shows up for people. And trying to sort of support them through that has been an interesting experience.
And part of that is that some of us who are a bit of control freaks, it's like you create constraint to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And now someone's saying, no, you can't do that. You can't go off and, you know, go to Haven, you know, and hang out with people 3 or 4 times a week. You've got to do it in this different way on your own, but collectively. And and that can be really, really challenging. And that's where the bargaining comes in. It's those 5 stages of grief, you know.
Yeah.
Got all that's going on. You see the denial, you see the bargaining, you see the anger and outbursts, you know, that are really not warranted. You can see people get upset, and you can kind of see people say it, which is the resilience, which is, okay, this is a new normal for now, and what are the opportunities in it? I mean, I personally think, I mean, who would think, so I'm going to be political, who would think that we're going to have a socialist policies and a small L, you know, liberal, you know, big L liberal government, sorry, with free childcare? My goodness, I couldn't think that the LNP would come up with something like this, but this is like, it shows you these things are possible. There are changes that we never imagine, like you can't be out in public with more than one other person unless it's your family group. But there's also things that, you know, people can, majority of people who didn't have flexible workplaces can now work remotely. Yeah. Change is possible. It's also going to give people the possibility after a while of this in limbo time is you might actually find, actually, I don't like working the way that I worked. And while I had more time, I've done some Coursera courses, or I've done a meditation or mindfulness thing online. And it's like, actually, there is a different way of living. So my next challenge is, when we go to the next new normal, is how do I change my life? Okay, this doesn't serve me anymore. And I've had, you know, look, a lot of people do find it really uncomfortable having headspace to think. And the other trick that I'd say for that if you're someone who's finding the constraint really challenging and having unwanted thoughts, then the other mindfulness tip is to label the thoughts. So, for example, in meditation, I've been taught that if a thought comes up, label it, you know, past, present, or future. So it's, I think if I start thinking about what I'm having for lunch, that's future. If I think about the conversation I had with somebody on the way to meditation, that's the past. And if it's like my bum's really sore, that's the present. But you can label something. So the same thing with if you're home and you've had too much time on your own and your old thoughts are coming up. You can also label them. You can say, well, it's a past thought, but you can also say, that's fear, or that's discomfort, or that's sadness. And the labeling of the thoughts kind of acknowledges the thoughts that are there without going down into the rabbit hole of them.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of, acknowledging them takes away the control they have over you. It kind of puts you a bit more in the driver's seat. So you recognize what it is, and then you can choose whether you do buy into them, or if it's helpful for you, or what you need to do with that thought. You know, you can choose whether you just sit with it, or.
And obviously, if harmful behaviours are coming up, or your a dysfunctional relationship with food is being triggered, or self-harming, or depression, then the other wonderful thing is there's all this money being pumped into being able to access mental health online. So definitely don't feel as though you have to kind of hunker down for the duration. You might be more aware of your triggers now, and it gives you, the opportunity, which might be, well, maybe it's time I get some help.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a valuable time to open up those pathways for sure. Cool. Any other thoughts that come up, Gill? Any other sort of tips or any specifics around techniques and tools that we can use for nervous system. We've talked about some practical stuff with the baths, which I just love. I can't have a real bath, which really disappoints me, but I love the foot bath idea. And the breathing, we talked about the pranayama, the box breathing, which I might do a little link to as well for everybody who's not here. And then the 5 senses, and we talked about labeling thoughts. Any other little things that come up that we haven't touched on?
Look, I suppose the other, we kind of talked about the mind and the body. So perhaps the other thing we need to think about is the spirit. And to me, spirit is nature. We're very lucky if we're not in actual quarantine, self-isolation, that we can still go into the world and be aware. I mean, even if it's urban nature, we should be staying in our neighbourhoods, but we're really lucky in the inner west, even though it's urban, there's lushness, there's rich bird life, there are a lot of trees, there are a lot of plants. Maybe it's time to, if you don't have a garden, just try to grow something. You know, you can even kind of, if you get things like bok choy, when you've finished it, you can keep that bottom bit and put it in a glass of water, it'll start shooting out. There's things, you know, like it's really hard to get vegetable seeds and seedlings now, which is kind of interesting. But there are things that you can do. You can regrow spring onions that, you know, or sorry, what do you call them in Australia? Shallots. You can do all that. So that, but nature's, I mean, spirit is also connection, you know, and that I think, for many of us, we're actually connecting more, not less. And we're, you know, there's some wonderful opportunities to, as an excuse to connect with people we haven't connected with for a while. It's really interesting, the random messages I'm getting on Facebook from, I went to primary school with, and, you know, it's really lovely. But I think Haven provides a really lovely community. And I think there's a real difference at doing your classes in real time too, when you see that other people are there. It does feel like you're in class, and you've created a really wonderful space to make that happen so fast.
We're so lucky. I keep saying this, and this is what I find is a really valuable thing right now, is to think about the things that I'm grateful for. And I just feel so, so blessed that we have the community that we have. And yes, like over the last 2 years, you know, we've really built that, and, you know, we've done lots of things to kind of establish that and help grow it. But the people that are attracted to Haven are just such a wonderful bunch of people, you know, and so we have that. And so, and I just feel really lucky that I've been able to take everything online. And yeah, we know it's different, it's not the same, but to have, I feel like if we didn't have the community that we had, I can't imagine it would still be such a great experience. Like I imagine that I've heard some things about other, you know, fitness places, and a lot of the kind of bigger box gyms and that, which I would assume don't really have the community that we have, being such a small place. And that I just can't imagine having that same community like transferring online. And like Monica, you were there on Friday night. We had our hangout, and we were all drinking wine and chatting together. It was so fun. And just to be able to do that kind of stuff has actually felt like, to me, I don't feel like we've lost connection. I feel like we're actually maintaining it or growing it even. So I do feel super, super, super grateful that we have that, and that I've just the kind of work that we do, that we can deliver this online, because obviously a lot of people who do face-to-face interpersonal stuff can't do that. So I feel very lucky.
You do face-to, I mean, you're actually talking hands-on stuff.
Like physiotherapy and things.
Yeah, you know, no, you can't. Yeah.
Massage therapist.
Yeah, I know. I miss my massage therapist already. Hey, Karina, have you got anything to add? Since, you know, one of your previous hats is one with psychologist on it.
I still practice it now every day, Jill.
Yeah. You do, yeah.
Any tips around just staying calm or in this time? I think the thing is, one of the big ones is we are spending so much more time on our screens, more time than ever. Even if we work in an office, we might be on a screen, but we might be looking around and talking to people. And I really worry about the impact that's having on people and their mental health. And they may not be even watching the news all the time, but even too much of just screen time. So
that's
just
a good point.
Getting away from the screen. I mean, I was even saying to Jill on Friday, we were going to catch up, but I was just like, I've been on Zoom all week and I just can't, spend the evening on Zoom. So what are the things that we're choosing to do in our time that's taking us away from the screen. It's super important. And even giving yourself a little goal, like we're talking about changing your habits, little tiny goals of like, I'm going to at least for 5 minutes a day do something that involves not staring at a screen and doing something with my hands, something that you love to do. You know, it might be folding the towels, or I don't know, but take yourself away from that screen and be really conscious of it, because I do see us as being at home for at least another, if we're at home for at least another 3 months, how are people going to feel about having spent that much time on their screen the whole time? And try and work out those lovely things. I mean, I'm a drawer and I've got lots of pens, and I'm back to drawing again, not doing things, journaling, you know, digitally. I've closed my iPad and used paper again, or just those things that mean that we look away and we build up a new habit around looking away.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, I didn't even like think about bringing that up. It is something I've thought about, is just the amount of like time physically that we're faced with our screens. Like, what is that doing to our eyes even? And
I was going to say, actually, because this is something we do know, is that when you've got this really narrow, short focal length, and actually we've got so many muscles in our eyes that do focusing. So when we have this fixed length for a period of time, it actually really wrecks your vision. So the other thing that people can do is to Google eye exercises, but the really basic eye exercise, which is a good reminder to myself because I haven't done this for years, is you choose 2 different lengths. So it might be having your finger here, and then I've got my blind open, I can see outside. So you might kind of basically so you're working the muscles in your eyes. So it might be 10 breaths looking at the far vision, bring it then 10 breaths close, then far and close. So you're doing a workout for your eye muscles.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And it just made me think that maybe that's something I'll put together, because there is actually yoga for the eyes and yoga for the face. So I might just put together a little something to share with people around that. It's a really good point.
Yeah. My other great tip, I think, for being at home and being stuck on our screens all the time is I've got a little timer set on my watch, but you can put on your computer as well, that every hour it says basically get up, and I do 2 sun salutations.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
So I just stand up where I am, I do a little run through, and then I can go back to it. But it means I've not only just stood up, I've moved my whole body. I don't need a mat or anything. I can just do it on, you know, next to my desk. No one's going to laugh at me because no one's here. So just have a little routine that means that you're moving all of yourself. Which is just that little bit more than getting up.
I love that too, because I think sometimes, you know, people often talk about that, having a little routine where it's like, you know, every hour you get up and you go make a cup of tea or something. But sometimes I certainly feel like this. I can be so stuck into what I'm doing, and then I'm just like, it feels like I don't want to take away from what I'm doing here to actually go and make a cup of tea. And so I just bounce everything out, you know, without moving. But just like that just a little bit of movement, which feels like it's not like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's just like really quick. It just kind of gets the blood flow and everything going. I think that's a beautiful idea.
I use my timer on my phone all the time, or literally all the time, to do things to move. But what I will sometimes do is use the timer on my oven, because it's got a really annoying beep. Really annoying beep, and it's a few rooms away, and I can hear it, and I have to get up. And I also use that for what I call my wallow technique, which is, if you're feeling sad and sooky, it's okay to honour that, but you might want to put a time on it. You might want to say, I want 10 minutes or 20 minutes of wallow time. And my commitment is that when the timer goes off, well, particularly if you've got to physically move room to turn the timer off, that I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do something physical. So I've been in my head, I'll be physical, which has got nothing to do with these times. It's something I've told clients about for years. But yeah, you know, also, you know, setting a timer that you can't ignore and get moving is really good. So yeah, it might be you're sitting with an uncomfortable emotion, or you say, look, I actually want to have a break from what I'm doing and I want to have some screen time. Well, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes and then I'm going to get up and do something else. So you just don't fall down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed last week, I think the start of the week, the first couple of days, I'd had, just a lot of time with the computer and not really consciously making myself move myself away from or anything. And I hadn't really ventured too far from the house or anything. And then I just was so craving outdoors. So I went for a walk on the Wednesday, and it changed everything. Like I just felt like a different person. And I actually went all the way to Cooks River, which was just so beautiful. I love Cooks River. And I was just by myself for most of the time. And I did see a friend, but it was just like something which I feel like we probably take for granted, or we don't really, people are focusing on it more now with the way things are, but just walking, just the beauty of walking. Like I've always been a walker, but it's so apparent to me now how important it is and how pleasurable it is and how much we can get out of it. And I'm seeing a lot of people do it too, which is really cool.
And it's also changing up your route so you don't get used to it. And also too, like my quick walk would be, if I've been sitting down too long, I'll just pop 2 blocks down to Camperdown Oval and do some laps of the Oval and come back and keep working. Now it's full of one-on-one personal trainers, full of everyone walking. So it's like, okay, I'm going further. I'm going to Sydney Uni, and Sydney Uni is like this wonderful ghost town. It's got 4 fields. It's got it's got beautiful old buildings. Yeah. The other thing that I've actually been doing this since the 13th of March because I could see what was coming. So I put a practice in place, which was every weekday at 1 p.m. I'll do a 5 to 10 minute Facebook Live on my work page, which is City Natural Therapies, and just talk for 5 or 10 minutes about something a day and turn up and build community. And I knew that I'd be in this position in a few weeks' time where I'd be home alone because my partner's caring for his mum, and I've done part of that planning. It's been really nice. It's like at a normal time, I wouldn't want to be tied on to have to do something at 1 o'clock every day. That's when I want to go up to sushi train for sushi, or I want to go for a walk or whatever. It's tied me in. And one of the things and it's also making me very creative about what can I talk about something different today. But one of the things I talked about this week was about traveling, for us who are travelers, I was going through my cupboard to use up kind of old samples and things, and I came across this beautiful moisturizer, which took me back to this beautiful trip that I had, and I was on the small boat, and everything was scented with this, and I went, you can still travel, so you can use your senses to bring you back, and you've got photos and music, and you could learn a language, or you can do things to plan your next trip. But the other trick from that is, like, when you actually walk through these familiar streets, to pretend that you're on holiday and you've never been there before. And I don't know about you, but I take tourist in your own city. But it's like I do it now at home. But anyway, but it's like particularly when I'm traveling, I take more photos of doors and door handles and different architecture, and to actually be that it's a kind of a curiosity exercise to pretend that you've never seen that street before, you've never seen that architecture before, you're really noticing it, It's kind of can slightly sate those travel things, apart from dreaming of the next trip, whenever with all those credits you keep getting from the airline.
I do like that idea. I love wandering unfamiliar areas and exploring and stuff. So if you can take that kind of curiosity to it and be the tourist, I think that's a nice way to get outdoors and that too. Cool. Monica, do you have any questions or anything you wanted to add, lovely?
I'm just thinking if is it still really fuzzy? I've just cleaned the camera a bit.
No, it's way better.
Yeah.
I think there was just needed a clean. I just got to grab some wipes. So my nervous system, I've been finding it hard to get to sleep at night, and so if I do like a meditation like at night or before I go to bed, that should help me get a better night's sleep, shouldn't it?
So I kind of think everything you do through the day is going to set you up for how you sleep at night. So that some of the tricks are to actually get up at the same time every morning. Because that actually sets just go to sleep time. It's the time you get up in the morning. It's making sure you move your body during the day. It's about being really careful around caffeine intake or sugar intake. if you can get off, if you have caffeine and try to get off caffeine, well, you know, this could be the time to start scaling down. And it's kind of like if you've got habits of doing things like eating chocolate after dinner, that's a stimulant, and often it's sugar, that can affect your sleep. So things like the foot
and also being on your screen.
Yes, but and what I was going to say, you need at least an hour off your screen, preferably more, and that includes, you know, I'm just watching television now. So trying to read a book. I mean, this is challenging when most of my things are on Kindles now, but I do have some paper books around to actually read a paper book. But to be off the screen, maybe just listen to some relaxing music, maybe put on a guided imagery, maybe do the foot bath.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if you do have chamomile, you know, good old fashioned chamomile to take some of that during the day. If you have lots of fluid just before bed, you're probably going to wake up and go to the toilet a lot. But yeah, and just accept also too, I think the other trick around sleep, but I totally, absolutely agree with what Karina said. It's that screen, it's that blue light. It's just even though you can get sleepy looking at a screen, it's actually a different part of our brains being stimulated. And when you turn it off, it's like, it's to not fall into fear of not sleeping. So you can just use that labeling exercise when you're lying there and random thoughts come up, just to say, past, future, and just say to yourself, it actually doesn't matter how many hours I get right now. I'm just going to enjoy the warmth of the bed or the coolness of the bed and the fact that I don't have to do anything right now, and just going to snuggle down and indulge that sense of comfort. Yeah.
That's good. Hopefully that helps, Monica.
That might help a bit. I'm trying to get up at the same time, but it's just been really hard.
It's creating a new habit, and this is going to be an interesting week because we time shifted as of today, and an hour does take us a good week or two to get used to with the change in time. Yeah.
Well, hopefully there's some tips there that help, and this will be available for replay, and I'll put together a little follow-up on all those things that we've touched on, which I think will be really helpful to a lot of our lovely ladies as well, lovely members.
And you can add my website. Did
you want to share where we can find a little bit more about you, and also maybe get onto your mailing list?
Sure. So Gill Stannard, GILLSTANNARD.com.au, and whenever you land on my website, you'll see you can put your name and address for a mailing list if you'd like to get a newsletter. I've got heaps of recipes, got heaps of articles because, you know, I've been around for a while. So if you've got a kind of something, if you want to know more about sleep, just type sleep into the search box.
Cool. Yeah. And are you doing consults in that online? Like, are you doing?
Yep. So I'm still consulting. I still do a proper naturopathic consultation and follow-ups, and have access to herbs and other nutrients as required to mail out.
Great.
Thank you.
That is very helpful to know. Nice to know where you are. Cool, guys. Well, thank you heaps for joining, Karina and Monica. And lovely to have you, Gill. And we'll all keep in touch, and I'll see you online. Let's see if we can go a little bit screen-free for later on in the day. It is the weekend after all, right? Yeah. So take it easy, guys. Any other thoughts, questions?
Nothing. I'll just see you in class. And thanks for all the amazing stuff you're doing online. It's wonderful.
Thank you for the very kind words and all the support. It means a lot. All right, guys. Good to see you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Gill.
Nice to see you too.
See you, Gill.
Bye. I'll see you not online one day. Bye.
See you guys.
See you, Anna.
Bye.
Bye, Anna.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Gill.